RNN Solar Day 2017 is brought to you by the following: Rhode Island College, Cardi's Furniture and Mattresses, WB Mason Office Supplies, the 10th Annual Boston Green Fest, Clean Energy Development, Carolyn Sakonnet Vineyard, and the Arpin Group.
Thanks so much for staying with us. We are back here, Belcourt of Newport. We're just shifting everyone around, both in the audience and here on the set. Stuart Flanagan has joined us. Stuart, welcome to the show, Newport Renewables. And we want to talk first, though, Shahin, about when did you start to think that renewables, that solar might work here at Belcourt of Newport?
As I said earlier, it was always on our radar based on previous projects. But I remember the day I was on the roof at the very beginning. I think it was the first week that I started working on the project. And there's a roof right above us that faces south. It has a perfect...
Is it flat?
No, it has a perfect pitch, just a very subtle pitch. And when I saw that, I said, this is crying for a solar panel. So,
what's the material? Is it a membrane?
Before it was tin roof, but it was badly damaged, and we replaced it with a membrane. And then at that point, I contacted Stuart. But before you ask him anything, I just want to say something about Stuart. I met Stuart a few years earlier on a Earth Day in Jamestown. We both had done different projects that had solar panels. And I met them for the first time there, and I was very impressed by them. It was just him and his partner. And when I thought about this project, I approached Carolyn. I said, I know these guys. They're local. They're young. It's a young company. I think we should definitely use them. And that fits perfectly with Carolyn's doctrine. So, and he can speak for himself and how much he has expanded and the company has grown.
Well, it's been a great story, and Stuart, as you know, we have talked to reps from Newport Renewable, and we have seen some of the work. As you approach this, for me it would be a little daunting, right? This is, wow, how do I work with a building, and I don't want to make a mistake. And so you're taking a very, well, not always a modern, right? It's been around a long time, but as we think about using it on a consistent residential basis, somewhat contemporary. Was it daunting? How was the roof? What made it work? What was difficult? It's a lot of craftsmanship that you put into this.
Sure, well it was definitely more than we'd ever undertaken, but at Newport Renewables we always welcome a challenge because it forces us to innovate, puts us outside of our comfort zone. So we really enjoyed the opportunity first just to be introduced to the project and eventually to actually move forward with it. So being a century-old building, there was definitely quite a few challenges, but as I said, just that challenge just forced us to come up with new opportunities, new solutions to the problems we were facing.
Stuart, when you and your team and Shahin were working this all out, were you restricted in terms of maxing out the system, or did you size the system for a particular need?
We basically used the entire roof area that we could on that south-facing rubber roof that was exposed and not visible from the ground level. So we used as much area as we could to produce the most energy per square foot.
Okay.
And how is that translated when you think about what you can produce here versus what will be used? Because there are efficiencies, obviously, that you've built in. What can you produce here in terms of kilowatts, and what does that represent?
Sure, so it's an 18 kilowatt array, just over 18 kilowatts. There's 120 solar panels, American-made solar panels on the roof. So we're generating around 26,400 kilowatt hours a year, which covers 13 to 15% of the building's annual electric consumption. That equates to around $4,800 in annual savings and is the equivalent of offsetting about 19 tons of carbon dioxide annually. So not only is there a financial benefit, there's an environmental benefit as well.
There are two things I want to bring up. Number one, and I know we're going to talk about it later, but this building represents a nice marriage, a nice synergy between photovoltaics, renewable energy, and renewable energy of geothermal. Because they work hand in hand. The other thing I'd like to talk about, whenever we get some time, about two important programs.
Well, and just touch on geothermals for the heating and cooling.
Right, but other programs in Rhode Island This project didn't take advantage of it because it's all using private money, but there are some important government programs out there. So geothermal.
Well, and that brings up a great point too, as we go from kind of that micro to the macro. This was then set up for private. So versus, as you know, there's tax equity and there's ITC and there's things like that. But regardless, the way that you constructed it, right, had to make economic sense as well as a physical sense and have a reasonable return, I would think, for the facility.
Right, that's exactly right, and that's the environmental benefits are always a driver of these projects, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the dollars and cents. So a big part of this was, I think, as well, having the geothermal, creating all the energy or a portion of the energy needed to generate that geothermal heating and cooling in an efficient manner.
And my experience has been that the systems produce at or above the projections. They're very consistent and the projections are right on target. What about a learning curve? What would you have learned here that you can apply to other situations, other customers?
Sure, so being a 100-year-old building, and Sam and Shahin can attest to this, there's no plans for us to go off of. So everything that we had to engineer and install, we had to figure out for ourselves. So an example being the roof structure. We have a 100-plus-year-old roof structure that's supporting a cathedral ceiling above us on the next story. So we had to do quite a bit of detective work, as Sam said, to actually analyze that 100-year-old roof structure and come up with a method to attach this system that's going to hold up to the extreme storm events that we get here in Newport. So we basically were forced to innovate, come up and custom make some hardware, stainless hardware, that'll attach this array to the roof. We'll never have to worry about wind uplift, removing any of the panels from the roof.
And as a designer, architect, what does that tell you going forward in terms of solar, maybe wind, geothermal, fitting into a historic building?
Well, there are definitely challenges, no question, but there's always a solution. You just have to investigate and have a full understanding of the building. And there are times that you may have to make some slight modifications and adjustments to the structure, but there's always a way to do it. And as long as there's a will, there's a way.
And Ken, to your point, so there's a lot of programs in Rhode Island. We will get to that in a minute in more detail, but I'm guessing then here it's a DG, or is it it's a net meter, I should say, right, where it's offsetting?
Correct.
Directly.
Yeah, it's net metered, so all the energy produced is used here by the building. Any excess is credited and used that night, the next day, or the next month.
And Ken, as we talk to a global audience, obviously every situation is different, but there's, as an example, here in Rhode Island, there's grants. There's obviously tax credits consideration, there's tax equity. There's a lot of ways of looking at the financing an NGO, right, versus a for-profit company, but there should be a model. We have a lot of virtual net metering going on now. There should be a model, I would think, that would fit is, as you said, if you have the perseverance and the diligence to make it work physically, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, old buildings obviously have their own idiosyncrasies, The building envelope is weak, as far as insulation is considered. So you all have to take all of these aspects into consideration, and you have to look at it in a global sense as the structure and how you can use this different system, how you can seal the building the best way so you can get the best result out of it.
Well, Ken, in a minute, we are going to be able to talk with Carol Grant. She is the commissioner of the Rhode Island Office of Energy Resources, and we will actually get into a broader discussion about what is going on here and why it's really, and not just in Newport, but in the state of Rhode Island, it's a very good place to do clean energy. Give us a minute. We'll be right back on RNN.
Richard Morris Hunt, the architect who designed Belcourt, was the first American to study at the renowned École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, France.